Hi, I'm Selena, and today we're going to be talking about my top roughly 5 favorite series, and I am not including series that I have read this year or series that I am reading this year and I'm loving, because I want to first of all give myself a chance to finish those series and see them through to the end to see if they make this list. But also I want to document my favorites before January of this year, so the cutoff date for series that are on this list are series that I've read and loved before the start of 2020. And then I want to do a updated favorite series video at the end of 2020 to see if they've changed, see what series have taken their place. So, without further ado, let's get into my number 5 favorite series. And I've already started cheating because my number 5 favorite series are actually 2 series in one because I couldn't choose between them, and they're both currently duologies, and I have a really hard time classifying duologies because they're 2 books and a lot of times they're not entirely related, like they're companions, and so I don't know how to like they don't directly follow, so I don't see them in the same category as other series that like go on forever, like Harry Potter or something, but I also don't think of them as a standalone because there's 2 books and they're so different, so I can't just combine them, so I don't know. But my number 5 spot is reserved for the 2 duologies that deserve to be on my favorites list. And the first one of those is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. If you don't know, these are some of my favorite books ever. I am obsessed with Alice, I'm sure, as you can tell, because I have so many copies of it. I just love these books so much. I tried so many times to read this book growing up and before going to college, and it never really worked out. I never loved it as a kid. I only really started loving it when I was about 19, and I read it actually for a class in college and just fell completely in love. And then I continued with Through the Looking Glass and love this just as much. Wonderland is such an amazing place for me to go, and I love the whimsy and the nonsense of this series. I can't not put it on my favorite list, but this is like I said, one where I'm kind of like, they don't really feel like a series to me because they're so short, but they don't feel like one standalone, even though they're often published as like a bind up, because they're so different. Alice goes to 2 completely different worlds, and though there are characters who come up again unexplained, they are very different, even though they both feel like Alice stories. I love these books, and I probably will always love them, and they mean quite a lot to me. The other series that is in my number 5 slot is also a duology for now. If the 3rd book comes out, I've heard there's going to be a 3rd book following a character from book 2. And if that comes out, it could go higher, but for right now, I have trouble thinking of it as a series because it's a duology. But that duology is Letters to the Lost and More Than We Can Tell. I love this duology so much. It's one that really I was not expecting to love as much as I did. I picked up Letters to the Lost when the Loosely Bound book club read it in August. I got it from the library because I didn't think I would like it, and then I read it within 24 hours because I loved this book so much. Oh my goodness. I just was obsessed with it after reading it. I literally recommended it to everyone I knew. I kept talking about it. I could not shut up about it. It also opened up a world of dark contemporary books focusing on grief, I guess. I'd read darker contemporary books before, such as Eliza and Her Monsters and The Hate You Give, but I hadn't really delved into that much of the genre. I'd mainly stuck to romantic contemporaries because I didn't know there was much of a difference, but this book really proved to me that there was a difference, and this book was so emotional and yet so light and sweet and easy to read at the same time because of the cute romance that is going on in the back. This book follows Juliet? Yes, a girl named Juliet who has recently lost her mother, and she is grieving, and she goes to her mother's gravesite a couple times a week and leaves her letters because she used to write her letters a lot when she was alive. Then we also follow Declan, who works at the graveyard, and cleans it as it's like a disciplinary thing. He got into some trouble with the law, and so he's doing this instead of jail time, I suppose, as a minor. He stumbles across her letter and replies to her. Not as her mother, because that was my fear with this book. I did not want him to pretend to be her mother, and he doesn't. But he does respond to her, and she gets really mad, and then they have a correspondence. And it's really sweet, and I love it. It's also really hard-hitting and difficult, and I love that too. And then the companion, this is a companion, follows the character Rev from Letters to the Lost. Rev was adopted by his foster parents, but his biological father was very abusive to him, and he is dealing with that in this book. And as his past kind of starts to crop up in his present again. And we also follow a girl named Emma who has created her own video game, and because she's a girl, is being harassed on the live video game. And she and Rev meet, and they strike up a friendship, and it kind of helps them deal with their own personal lives. I highly recommend them both. I think this duology is perfect. So my number 3 favorite series, I am bitter about, because it should be higher, but it's not, because I didn't like book 3, but I loved the first 2 so much that I think it needs to be on this list. Wait, did I say number 3 favorite series? This is my number 4 favorite series, because, and it's that low because of this last book. This could be like, maybe like 3 or even 2 if it were not for this last book, and that series is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I read the first 2 books in the series when I was like 11 or something, or 12, and I really enjoyed them, but I didn't enjoy them to the extent that I do now. I recently reread these 2 and read this one for the first time because I DNF'd this one as like a 14-year-old or something. And I reread these and finished Mockingjay, and I loved them so much more than I thought I would. I'm gonna have a video coming out about The Hunger Games pretty soon, so I don't want to get into why I love them too much, but they are so emotional. They're so good. I'm sure you know the description of these. These were such a phenomenon, so I'm not going to go into it, but I thought these books were so emotional and so well done and explored such important themes that YA had never seen before, and they were absolutely revolutionary. And I liked the first half of Mockingjay, and it just completely fell apart in the second half, and honestly did a lot of harm to the series in my opinion. But the first 2 books I adore so deeply that I can overlook that second half of Mockingjay. I can't overlook it for Mockingjay, but I can overlook it for now and put this on my favorite series list because I love them so, so much. So I'm cheating again, and I'm going to do, these are technically 2 series in the number 3 spot, but they're in the same world, and so I'm going to count them together because I kind of count them all as the same thing. And this could also go down if the author keeps adding entries into this series. My number 3 pick is The GrishaVerse by Leigh Bardugo. I love these books. I love the first trilogy. I love the duology. I loved the duology more than the trilogy when I first read them, but this first trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, helped me get back into reading and helped me love reading again. And it was the first series that I picked up after finding BookTube, and I loved it so much. The Six of Crows duology I also loved. I have not reread this one. I hope to reread this series in December. Oh boy. To hopefully figure out whether it remains a favorite series. And I love this series. If you don't know, this book is a like loosely Russian-inspired fantasy about a girl named Alina who lives in a world that has been kind of ripped in half by, her country has been ripped in half by this dark force called the Shadowfold. And there's monsters living in the Shadowfold. It has split their country and made the country Ravka very weak. And Alina finds out that she might be able to help heal her country. This series is very typical YA. It gets a lot of hate for that. I personally don't care about that so much. I just really love the series. I think it's super solid, especially for the time it was written. But the Six of Crows duology is more of a heist story. I hear people say it's a lot less typical. It follows 6 ne'er-do-wells in another country in the same world as they try to pull off a heist that seems impossible. And I really like the series. I really like this world in general. This world, honestly, is one of my favorite worlds, and this magic is one of my favorite magic systems because it feels like coming home. The magic system is both original and familiar, and that's what I love about it. I love that this world is recognizable but also unique in its own way, and I don't know, there's something about this series that gives me like Harry Potter vibes and like just feels like I'm at home. So my number 2 favorite series is Harry Potter. Oh my goodness. My number 2 favorite series is Harry Potter. Okay. Stay, please. Okay. I love this series so much. I've loved it from the moment I read it when I was 11 years old. This book made me want to write. It made me obsessed with reading in a lot of ways. I was already obsessed with reading, but this made me even more obsessed. This was the first time that I loved a world so much and a story so much that I wanted to just live in it forever. I loved this story so much. I watched the movies over and over. I read the books over and over throughout my teenhood. I love this series. A lot of why I love it is because it is such a solid series in my opinion, but also because it is wrapped up in nostalgia for me. That is the reason why it is number 2. I have been rereading the series. I have 2 more left, and I have come to the conclusion that a lot of my enjoyment is nostalgia, but a lot of it is also because it is so solid. It is not number 1 anymore because another series has taken its place, and nostalgia can't hold that much weight over it because I love this next series so much, but I still love Harry Potter. I will always love Harry Potter. It has meant so much to me throughout my life. It has been there through hard times, happy times, all the time, and I will always hold on to it because of that. And my number 1 favorite series right now, as of the end of 2019, is Mistborn Era 1 by Brandon Sanderson. I don't even really have words for the emotions that this series brings me, but I'm gonna try to tell you about it. So this series, if you don't know, is about, there's a couple pitches for this series. It is the story of a girl who has been living on the streets and is used to terrible treatment in this society where most people are enslaved by a dark lord, like a dark lord kind of figure. Then this character that we follow teams up, is taken in kind of by this crew who wants to rebel against the dark lord, the lord ruler. The series as a whole is very hard to describe. All I can say about that is that it goes places that I didn't expect, and it really expands in later books, and I love it. I love this series so much. It took me a bit. Mistborn, or The Final Empire, is book 1, and it is very good. I did enjoy it the whole way through, but it is a little bit, I would say that Brandon Sanderson's writing is still developing at this point. This is his 2nd book he published. His side characters are still developing. His style is still developing. And this book can be a little bit slow at times, I thought, especially in the beginning, and then it picks right up. Also, in my opinion, those problems are not existent in the second 2 books of the series. Looking back at book 1, I love it so much more now because I know the arc and because I know where the series ends up. And I love it so much. I'm hoping to continue on with Era 2 in the second half of the year. I've already continued on with more of Brandon Sanderson's works, and I'm obsessed. And I love Mistborn so much. That was my favorite series video. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Tell me what series you agree with me on. Tell me what your top 5-ish favorite series are. Tell me which ones you disagree with me on also. And I'll see you next time. Bye!